So, welcome everyone. I'm Zolita Grant, and I'm very excited to bring you to the Unleash Your Brilliance Summit. This is a dream of mine to bring people that are experts in different kinds of fields that really have learned from the course of their lives into our audience and share their tips with you. Our guest today is Kel Holliday. He's a five-time best-selling author and globally recognized expert in leadership. He's been featured on Fox, ABC, and NBC for professional leadership systems. Family is central to his life. He has three daughters in healthcare and a son leading one of Canada's largest sound recording studios and three grandsons. An expert in creating time and freedom, Kel practices what he preaches. He traveled to 13 countries in 18 months and now resides in northern Thailand with his lovely wife. He's a serial entrepreneur. He built his first multi-million-dollar business at 24, growing it to over 45 million, while simultaneously teaching business management at TAFE. Passionate about life, tech, education, he's been a pioneer in technology solutions and in the rise since the rise of personal computers. All of his contact information is contained in our author portal, and I really encourage you to check out his website. He has an awful lot to offer. So, Kel, your work reflects your brilliance. So I want you to tell our audience how you got into this field and what it's really done for you.
Look, Zelena, first of all, thank you for having us here. And it is a passion of mine to be able to share those experiences of life. And what got me into this? It's quite an interesting journey, and I'll keep it very brief. But I started off my career as a carpenter, builder. But I also loved technology. So technology was one of those little threads that sort of weaved throughout my whole life. And it was one of the keys to the success of that building business to be able to grow so large so fast is that I adopted some tech. And so a little bit of a passion, a little bit of a side hustle, so to speak, little things that I like to do, apply that into my life and off I went. And so that's what it was always about. I was always looking for those, what's the building blocks of the business? Where am I going? What's it about? Made a lot of mistakes along the way. There's no doubt that you can't be in business and make no mistakes. Made a lot and learned from those and kept on growing and developing new businesses. But it was really a passion for me. I love to see, particularly when I was in the building industry, I love to be able to hand over a house to a new client, and they walk into their house for the first time and they go, oh wow, my dream. And so that's really what it's about. Is my brilliance, I guess, is about finding that time and freedom to live that dream life that people want to live. And so many people get stuck.
That's so wonderful to share with people. But many people have self-doubts and they
Mm.
have dreams, but their dreams are kind of eaten by their doubts. Did you ever have an experience in your life where you had to cope with self-doubt and push back through things?
All the time. I think anybody who says they haven't got any self-doubt is either fooling themselves or telling a little pork pie. And I think doubt is a part of it, So our resilience comes from when you have that doubt, how do you overcome it? And so doubt is almost like another form of fear, So when you have fear, if you break through that fear, it allows you to blossom and to face those things is probably one of the most important learning lessons we get to learn in life. And so if you don't want to do that, if you back off at those sort of times, you really are underestimating your own ability and your own strength and your own capacity, because everybody, I believe, has got that ability to be able to break through if they want to.
So, do you have any tips on how to do that?
Well, one of the biggest things is it's who you surround yourself with. And so in my younger life, my father was a serial entrepreneur. He had multiple businesses, and he mentored me in a little way as a child. Like I started working at a shoe store. And I started working in his shoe store at age 12. And I learned the art of sale and talking to people, etc. But more importantly, my father modeled the idea of having somebody who had been there, done that before, somebody who had built a successful business and spending time with that person. And so that's where my resilience come from. Sometimes we surround ourselves with the wrong people. They say, "Oh, gee whiz, that's going to be hard. Gee whiz, I wouldn't be doing that if I was you." And you get that negativity. But it's when you
Right.
get the positivity, when you get somebody who goes, "Look, I know that's not going to be easy, but I think you've got what it takes to actually get that job done." And that's what you need. You need positive people around you that will face the reality that yes, it's sometimes going to get tough. However, you've got what it takes. So just keep on pushing forward.
I think that's so true. The idea of looking at other people. I know in the 1980s, I did several workshops with Tony Robbins.
Mhm.
I really learned that idea that if you want to accomplish something, then you just model someone
Yeah.
that is already doing it.
Absolutely. And they say that, your net worth or your value or what you look at is the sum of the five closest people you surround yourself with. And it's so true. I found that. I'm not saying you have to surround yourself with all the wrong people or
Right.
these, the big gurus. Yeah, it's still nice to have a couple of friends that are around there, but the ones you listen to, the ones
Right.
that you take your mentorship from, they need to be that step ahead of you. And don't be afraid to let it out, to be accountable for both the successes and also those things that don't go quite right.
I think you're absolutely right. And that kind of brings us to the next thing I wanted to address, the concept of mindset.
Mm,
That you have to have shifts in your mindset.
yeah, absolutely. Look, I since starting up business many years ago, a bit of a mantra that I've had. It comes out of I've got a Christian faith, and it says, "Don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And so if you've got a mindset that gets fixed, you're really going to limit. You're going to limit what's your abilities. But if you've got an open mindset, I call it a transformational mindset, that ability to go beyond what you think is possible, all right, and having the confidence, the resilience, the people around you to keep pressing forward. And it's those times that, yeah, it's tough. However, the adulation, that feeling of, oh wow, gee whiz, I made it, makes up for all those things that can be a challenge along the way.
Do you think that intuition plays a part in that ability to keep your mindset focused on moving forward?
Absolutely. Intuition I think, is absolutely key. And I'll give you a very small example. One of the things that I started back in 2018 was a CRM, and it's a technology company. We built a CRM backed off a white label product. And everybody said, "Kel, that is just a dumb idea." But my intuition said, no, there's got some merit here. I'm not trying to build another CRM. What I'm trying to do is build something that's about productivity. It's about creating time. It's about creating freedom. And so a lot of people, when they talk about that particular type of software, talk about how do you market. And I was going, no, this is not about how you market. That's one part of business, but it's how do you create time and freedom? How do you automate those things to make freedom happen? And so I was coming at it from a completely different perspective, and people didn't quite get that in the first 2 or 3 years.
Hmm.
But it was the intuition. I'm going, I just, and it wasn't an easy go. It was a couple of times I'm going, look, they're probably right. I started listening to the doubters. But then all of a sudden I broke through. And when you break through and you break through that I call it a glass ceiling where you keep on banging your head and you keep on hitting that glass ceiling, you go, well, what's the barrier here? What's the barrier? And it really was just the communication. How do I communicate what I was trying to achieve? And
Uh-huh.
when you do that, oh, the world's your oyster.
I think the difference between only using your cognitive mind and using your intuition is your cognitive mind can only deal with the facts of the past.
Absolutely. And it's the facts of the past. And it's also, that's what I think where the limiting beliefs come from, is because it's quite easy to do your research and you go on the internet and you see all this stuff and you go, gee whiz, that's already a crowded market, or that's already whatever the barrier is that comes up, and that creates that limiting belief. But your intuition goes, well, hang on a second. Just ask that extra question, but what if? But what if?
Hmm.
And I think that was one of the key, one of my mentors, a guy by the name of Michael Griffiths, said to me, Kel, he said, I trust you. Like when I told him what I was going to do, he said, I'm not sure if I would actually attempt that. However, I trust you and your gut, your intuition is always served you well. So go for it, and he gave me that encouragement to go for it, and I did. And yeah, it's made a world of difference.
So that really shows the progression between creating this open mindset, allowing yourself to connect into your own intuitive knowing of something, and accessing creativity. So let's move
Correct.
into creativity and let's talk about how you allow your creativity to come forth.
Oh, so many things are interesting. As you said in the introduction, like I live my dream life. So here I am in Thailand. Every day I'm out for a swim. I go for a walk. It gets quite warm, but the creativity comes when you're not in front of a computer, when
Mhm.
you're not, trying to force it out of you. I just find that if I can have some time alone, I'll go for a swim, I'll do a couple of laps of the pool or the beach or whatever it might be. And I just allow myself my mind just to clear from all the distractions, clear the diary. Creativity happens. If you don't create the space, you won't be creative. And that's something that I learned very, very young in life, even when I was a builder. Now, if you don't create that time to think, you will always be in a hurry, always under stress, never get clarity.
Right.
So it's a really important thing. So I quite often we've just come out of the Christmas New Year period. So I take a week, like a full week. I don't answer a phone. I don't have any social media on. I don't answer emails. And it's not about just having a holiday. It's actually a time to think and get clarity to start the year well.
That is such
That,
an excellent idea. I always try and do between the winter solstice and New
yes,
Year's.
yeah. But the other thing I do as a regular thing is I call Fridays VIP day, right? So in our business, so often a lot of people go, oh, gee whiz, I just got to work harder, got to work harder, got to work harder. And they're afraid to take some time off. So Friday is a VIP day. And the reality is I'm the very important person. If you can't look after yourself, if you can't lead your business and look after yourself, and my health hasn't been great, but that's another whole different thing. But on a Friday is when I take my time out and I get creative on that particular time. Sometimes it's just a day of rest.
Hmm.
Sometimes it might be that I have to catch up with one or two people, all right, because it is an important thing to be able to progress the goals that I've got. But
Right.
predominantly, it's a time to be creative. It's a time to finish the week off. Think about what am I going to do the following week? What is that one thing that's going to be important for me next week? If I can tick that off, I'll have a good week. And so that's the rhythm I've got myself into. A week off at the start of a year to get my whole plan going. And I know all the different goals I've got week by week by week. And every Friday I look at my goals and say, did I achieve the goal this week that I tried for?
That's really excellent. That brings up that whole concept of planning. One
Yeah.
of the things that I find in my clientele, and I'm a hypnotic business coach and public speaker, but one of the things I find with my clientele is that most of them don't really understand how important it is to plan.
Oh yeah. 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 What's the old adage? Yeah, failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
It's
by Henry Ford.
it is just a simple thought, but it is real. And it's not
Absolutely.
just a matter of thinking about it, it's writing it down, having it clear. Like I literally on a Friday, I write down what my goals are. I have it literally sitting here, in my journal. I refer back to it every single day, start ticking off the boxes. I write it down. There is something about that cognitive writing it down, the physical writing it down. All those people who type things. My handwriting these days is getting worse and worse with the amount of typing we do and the amount of AI where you're just talking at screens. But the reality is, if you write down the power of that written goal is phenomenal.
So these are tips. These are tips that I want you to really bring into your life. The ideas that he's talking about, having a week to plan, having a day to really get into your creativity.
Mm,
This is very important tools to improve the quality of your life.
mm, yeah.
So
And
one thing that I notice is that once you have clarity, you seem to be a man of action. And
yeah,
that's so important. Can you share with us about that?
I, I again, all the time, when you have a plan, as I said, I have my journal. And by the time I write it down, if you just keep that to yourself, all right, you can be accountable to yourself. And if you're very self-motivated, you might do okay. If you actually share the goals that you've got written down, you share that with somebody else, an accountability, a mentor, share it with your team members. All
Yes,
of a sudden, you've got something that's not just a list of things. Now you're accountable for it. And so
absolutely.
if you say, and a goal, we've all heard about SMART goals before, but it's got to be, specific, measurable, accountable. All right. The A is for
Right.
accountability in my space. All right. And if you make it real and it's time based, I'm going to achieve this by this date, and you make yourself accountable to somebody, that will make you take action because it's nothing worse than turning up at an accountability or a mentoring session. You go, oh, I didn't get around to this, I didn't get around to that, and I didn't get around to this, and I didn't get around to that. It really defeats the purpose of having an accountability partner or a mentor. So
Absolutely.
once you get into that, you'll start taking action. And as I said, once you've got them written down and you can actually literally pick up your pen and you can tick the box, all right, or put a line through it, that feeling, it gives you the dopamine hit. That's really what it's about. It gives you that dopamine hit to go, now I'm excited. And that keeps you moving forward. That's the key to action, is getting that feeling that you're achieving something. If you're not achieving, if you don't have that in your mechanism, in your rhythm, some way to celebrate the wins, acknowledge the things that didn't go right, tweak them and then move forward, well, you're missing out on a lot of the benefit, a lot of the joy that comes out of business, in my mind, comes from celebrating those wins.
So this is essentially a formula,
Yeah,
where you create a goal, you create a plan, you make yourself accountable to do the steps of the plan, and then you achieve what it is you want.
correct.
Yeah, seems pretty easy.
It is a basic formula, and a lot of people talk about it. A lot of gurus are out there talking about it over and over again, but even some of the people who talk about it don't actually do it. And a lot of people, until you do it, until you get into a habit of it, and it's not going to do it for a week. It's not like a New Year's resolution that only lasts for the first week of the year. This is something that you get into a cycle with. And once you're there, it can take you 3 or 4 months to get into that cycle. And once it becomes a habit in your life, look out. Like you'll be surprised at what you can achieve once you get a beautiful rhythm of actually having all that happening in your life. Yeah.
So, when we're talking about rhythms, it kind of reminds me of something my coach talks a lot about how as an entrepreneur, you have to find your own natural rhythm.
Yes.
And your natural rhythm may not be the same as a 9 to 5 employee. What do you think
Correct.
about that idea?
Well, I think a 9 to 5 employee, the reality is they start thinking about work typically. They might start thinking about work on a Sunday night, all right, but they're really not actively setting any goals or trying to do anything until they arrive at work on a Monday morning.
Hmm.
So, and then they leave, they work there 8 hours or so and they leave and they go home and they clock off, and their brain's got a little switch in it saying, I've had enough for today, I'm going home, and then Tuesday they turn that little switch back on. When you're in that sort of stuff, that is a rhythm within itself.
Right.
However, that's not our normal, like for most people, that might not be your rhythm. Like for me personally, I love getting up early. I like to be able to get the things that I want to get done that'll actually move the business forward. I get that done before I have any appointments. So like it's now, just after 9 o'clock in the morning here in Thailand that we're recording here. But I've already been going for the last 4 hours.
Hmm.
I've got my day finished. And yes, I've got a couple extra meetings, but I don't have to actually get anything else done to achieve what I need to do for this week. Monday for me is the day of action. And
Wow.
so if
Great.
it's got a, if you've got a public holiday on a Monday, public holidays for me mean nothing. All right. It's nice to celebrate them, but my Mondays are my Mondays, my Fridays are my Fridays, and my weekends are my weekends off. All right. So yes, I try and do some stuff sometimes, but not all the time. There's got to be a time for me. There's got to be a time for you. And so I think getting into that cycle, knowing what your rhythm is, a 9 to 5 for me didn't work.
It doesn't work for me either. I've been self-employed for almost all my whole life.
That's right. And so some days might be a 12-hour day, might be a
Right.
14 hour, but that's followed up by a 4 hour day.
Right.
You can't do that in a 9 to 5 job. They're expected to go there from 9 to 5, all right, 5 days a week. And that's what but if you're in a creative space or if you're getting something done, it's 5 o'clock, it's time to leave. I'll just turn the computers off and walk out. It
Right.
takes another couple of hours to get back into that cycle. So
Hmm.
you're better off to actually get it finished. And
Yes.
so there's a lot of other tools like Pomodoro timing and stuff like that that I use to be able to get myself into a nice rhythm. And I go until such times as I've got the task done. I can put a line through it. Now I can turn off for the afternoon and have some time with my family or friends or whatever it might be.
So where do you think communication plays in this designing of your life? You're basically giving us a really wonderful formula for entrepreneurs, which a lot of our audience is going to be able to create and design and achieve goals. But how about communicating and interfacing with others around them?
So I think if I put the communication, there's a couple of different styles or a couple of different groups you communicate with. The first group you're communicating with is your team. So those people you're working with on a day-to-day basis. So if you're feeling down, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling stressed, and you communicate to that team, particularly as the senior leader of your business, you're communicating to your team that things are hard. And that's the wrong thing to communicate to a team. What
Hmm.
you want to be communicating and influence your team with is say, here is our goals. This is what we've done. Yeah. Face the realities. Like you cannot tell them that you've hit a goal if you haven't hit a goal. They'll
No.
soon call you out. All right. So having communication that's very clear with your leadership and your team is critical. So, and two-way communication. Hey, what do you think about this?
Hmm.
Let's do this particular task. Let's get this done. How are we going with it? Having a little stand-ups during the day. Having a clear communication that's positive, 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 that faces the reality of some of the things that go wrong, but being positive in that sort of space. That sort of communication is vital. Then you got the communication with your clients. All
Hmm.
right. So with a client, you've don't whatever you do. Like this is the biggest mistake I believe entrepreneurs make is to say that they know everything and that they are the absolute 100% expert at everything.
Hmm.
You can't be. You can't be. So having a structure where you've got team around you, and if you've made a mistake, say sorry. Sorry, I made a mistake. That goes a long way.
Hmm.
Now, it also depends on the culture, the different countries you might be working in. I predominantly work in Australia, New Zealand, UK, South Africa, United States, Canada. So they're my main markets. And the culture in most of those are very similar. However, I live in Thailand, and saying sorry is almost like taking on a bit of shame. So
Ah,
you've got to be aware that the culture you're working in and what's important there. But saying sorry in most Western cultures is an important fact. To say that you're human, and then when something has gone wrong, fix it fast.
hmm, very good
So
advice.
communicating with integrity is what I call it. If you can have your integrity intact, say sorry when you need to do it, fix what you need to do, and move on. That will build the trust. If you say, "Oh, she's okay, no problems, I've got you sorted," and you've got no idea what you're going to do, a lot of people do that, and I do it at times. But I know that I can achieve the goal. I just haven't figured out all the finer details. But I don't say yes unless I know and I'm very confident I've got the personal skills or my team has got the skills to be able to achieve that goal. Don't say yes if you should say no.
Sounds
So
Sounds like
yeah,
a really good way of looking at it. So you
yeah.
have a career that has spanned many, many decades, and
hmm
there's been differences in the different kinds of businesses you had. How have you been able to sustain yourself? Have you developed habits and patterns to help you do that?
Yeah. So I was hit pretty hard during the COVID period. Like I had COVID 8 times in 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
That was a challenge, and it's still that those health conditions were still affecting me. But I think I went through I've been through a very unhealthy, rough patch, external of the conditions that I live under myself and impose upon myself. But I think sustainability comes from, again, I go back to it. Who do you surround yourself with? And so having a team, having systems in place. So my business, when like in 2023, end of 2023, I was quite sick. Had COVID. I was in hospital for 7 days. I literally had flatlined a couple of times. So,
Wow.
it was a pretty torrid time. But my team had the systems and knew exactly what to do, when to do it, and they continued business. In actual fact, my business grew while I was laying in hospital
Wow.
basically on respirators. So my business was growing. So you cannot pretend that you are the holder of all the power of the knowledge and everything you have. That was one of the mistakes I made back when I was a young entrepreneur, in the building industry. When I had a back injury, a very significant back injury. I was laid up for 6 months when I broke my back, and my business collapsed because it all revolved around me. And that's probably the biggest lesson I learned in my history is if it revolves around you as the senior leader, your business it's not sustainable. It might be sustainable while you're there. It's not sustainable while you're not there. That will not create time and freedom for you.
Hmm.
All centers on you. So yeah, when I'd never done it before. I'd never taken massive amounts of time off. But when literally overnight it was sort of like, hey, I'm in hospital. I was in there for nearly 10 days of total non-communicado with my whole team, and the business grew. When I come back, that was the understanding that I had the right systems in place, the right team, all right, recruiting the right people. That's where sustainability comes from. And don't fool yourself that you have to be in control of everything and you have to know everything. Having people around you that are better than you is really cool.
There's so many important points that you're bringing out. And I think that your life is a wonderful example of what I talk about, that everyone has brilliance inside and that you can just unleash it and create your life. If you
Absolutely.
had tips that you would like to leave our audience with, what would you say?
I think, and I've said this a lot throughout our time together, Zelita, it's number one, get a mentor. And this is just not a mentor about how do you do marketing well and how do you grow your business. I call it an accountability mentor, somebody you can share your goals with outside of you that can actually, will kick you up the backside if you don't get there, if you stray, they'll keep you accountable to the goals.
So
They'll
that's what
listen.
I think of as a coach.
Yeah, I've got other coaches. I've got my marketing coach. I've got my growth coach. My accountability is big time. They don't set any goals. They don't help me set any goals. I do all the work in that, and I say these are the goals. I've set that with my coaches, and then I
Right.
come to my accountability and go, this is what I'm planning to do. And he goes, okay, then what? And he'll help me then set the time frames and those sorts of things. And he'll say, okay, we've got a crystal clear plan across everything. And then every month we just keep on going through those and we meet every fortnight in actual fact. Um, that I think is probably my number one strength. It's something I didn't have when I was younger. And it's something I've been able to do over these last 10 years. It's made a massive difference. So that's probably tip number one. And the second one, which we've talked about as well, is getting into a rhythm. That week at the start of the year, VIP Fridays, that they're just not negotiable.
Hmm.
Having non-negotiables. And so my calendar, if you have a look at my calendar, it can be very busy.
Hmm.
If I've got a busy period, I also follow that up with a quiet period. I don't have busy, 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 busy. And so getting into a rhythm where the busyness, so Tim Ferriss wrote a book, The 4 Hour Working Week. I'm not sure if 4 hours is enough, but 4 hours a day is actually quite sustainable.
Right.
And it'd be one of those tips is what are the hours you want to work? What are the things that you love to do,
Hmm.
that you want to continue to do, and everything else that you don't want to do and don't want to continue to do, find somebody else to do them for you and build a system and give it to them.
Oh, I'm so glad that you came to talk to our audience. I think these are just wonderful jewels. And the wonderful thing to remember is that you have access to this video for quite a bit of time. So I want to thank Kel for joining us. I want to encourage you to take a look at his information in our speakers portal. And he also has a gift for our audience. Do you want to tell him anything about the gift?
Yeah. So what I built over a number of years now with technology, all right, we're in I call it the technology avalanche. The amount of stuff that's coming through, it's almost impossible to keep up. And so I've created a nice tool to help a business owner say, well, it doesn't matter where I am. It's a little diagnostic tool that knows what are the different pieces of technology you currently have. What is that going to look like in the future if you start to hit your goals? And start to analyze what it is you're going to need in the future. So AI is now very much here. So having the right CRM, having the right productivity tools, having the right things to do your video editing, all those tools, every single tool you can possibly think of is in this one diagnostic tool. And so I'm going to give that diagnostic tool out, as well as at the end of that diagnostic tool, if you want to book a time with myself, all right, I'm normally in the region of $1,000 an hour, all right, but I'm going to give away a free 30-minute consultation to be able to help people to really nut down what is the technology and what does your team look like to be able to take you to where your goals are. So don't turn up at that 30-minute session if you don't have some goals written down, because I'll ask you to show it to me on the screen.
Right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, audience. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.